Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my card making space, and a couple more Halloween cards. Most likely, this will be the official end of the 2024 Halloween card series because this is number 31, and Halloween is basically here. So, I will link to my Halloween 2024 series in the end screen. Don't forget, those that love Halloween making as much as I do, I have over a decade's worth of Halloween playlists, and who knows when I'll start the 2025 series. You never know. Today I'm making flat shaker cards. I love making flat shaker cards. They're kind of my favorite type of shaker card to make. Another playlist that I'll link in the end screen is my flat shaker card playlist, because I've made tons and all different sorts of ways, different products, different methods of doing it. So you can check that out too if you are more interested in that. And then, as always, I'll have links to everything I used in the description box below the video. Just expand it. Everything will be there. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you use one of my links, if you click on it and then end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills, keeps the channel going, etc. That's it for the housekeeping. Let's get into making these cards. So I'm using the Houndstooth Bats layering stencil set. This was part of the limited edition Halloween kit that came back in September. That's long sold out, but the stencil set is available separately. And I've had it sitting here for a while. Finally got a chance to use it. And I've been in a pink mood lately, so I'm going to start with pink ink. I have my big Altenew grip mat on my work surface, and then I have an A2 size panel, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches of cardstock. And then I also have one of my card bases with the inside of the card facing up, and then some post-it tape at the score line to keep me from getting anything stenciled past the score line. And I blend on the card panel, like the card front first, and I was using Rainbow Splash ink in Ballet and a blending brush. And then I transfer the stencil over onto the inside of the card, and without re-inking the brush and using much lighter pressure, I just get a much lighter impression because I don't want it like solid on the inside of the card, because it makes it easier to be able to write over it. So I'll still get the pattern, but I won't have, it so intense. And then I get the second stencil layered, and then this color is the Rainbow Splash gravel ink, and then same thing. Blending that onto the card front, like full strength, and then transferring the stencil over, lining it up, and then lightly just using whatever's left over on the brush and the stencil. And then the final stencil does the eyes. Super cute. So that I'm using just Rainbow Splash black ink and a smaller blending brush, because I try to keep this one just for black inks, because black ink is, likes to muddy up everything else. And going through and like filling out the little eyes. And even though this is Houndstooth Bats, it makes me think of cats. It's like, it could work for that too, just a big old pile of cats just sitting there staring at you, So blended that on, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to transfer the stencil over to the inside, and then again, just very, very lightly go over it with the blending brush just to give that little bit of impression. And of course I did this twice, because when I've got all the supplies out, why not? Now for my splatter, I'm using my Distress Watercolor Pencil Palette. I will link to the video I did, goodness, that was well over a year ago I think now, showing how I make this palette, because if I don't link to that video, I always get asked, what is this? So yeah, I did an entire video showing exactly how I made that, because it is kind of my preferred way, especially for splatter. I've shown like using the pencil itself and adding water and yada yada, but this is so much more convenient. And I just added water to the colors I want to use, which are spun sugar, hickory smoke, black soot, and then swirled it up really good with my fan brush. I've got my card fronts in my splat box to kind of prevent splatter from getting absolutely everywhere. And then I just got to work it up with my brush and then splatter it on these backgrounds. And the pink and the gray on camera, like, don't show up a whole lot, but there's a lot of splatter on these. I wanted to add like more texture and whatnot, and just, it's splatter. It's fun. It's fun. But yeah, the pink and the gray, much more subtle. It's when I add the black soot, as I always say, like black soot is just It can take over absolutely everything. So I did the pink, rinsed off my brush. Now I'm going to add the gray and get that all over these backgrounds. If you want to keep it more subtle, you could just stop there. But of course I need to add black splatter. They're Halloween cards. So added the gray, and then I'm going to go in, and even though I'm using a much lighter hand with the black soot, because it's powerful, it's still like created big blotchy, smeary splatter, which it's fun. It's fun. And like I always say, if splatter's not your thing, don't do it. It's great. You know, we thankfully we have many, many options, all different personalities and styles and all the things. So I added my black splatter, and then while those were drying, I did my die cutting, and then which I'll get to because that'll be what kind of finishes off. But after the splatter was dry, I ended up trimming these panels down. I could have left them full A2 size. It's kind of one of the beauties too about doing flat shakers is you can make them whatever size you want. But I like trimming them down. It just, I don't know, I like having the border of the card base a little bit. So I trimmed them down a bit to like 4 by 5.25. And then I'm just using one of my clear bag pieces. I'll have a link to these. I save all my packaging, and I've shown that in other videos too, like using just recycling my packaging, anything. And then there's also pouches you can get to do flat shakers. Like there's so many options now. So I cut the packaging, and that one package I can get 4 shakers out of it. So I cut it and then like split it apart, and then I've got the 2 panels for my flat shakers. And then to adhere these pieces of plastic to the back of these panels, I'm using red line tape. Score tape works wonderfully as well. It's a little easier to work with because red line is notorious for being as annoying as possible, but it is also one of the strongest. And I just switch around. There's no real rhyme or reason. It's just I've got all this score tape. I have multiple rolls of red line tape. I have so much of it. I swear it multiplies when I'm not looking. I don't know how much I ended up. I have an entire massive drawer full of like red line and score tape and all the things. Lifetime's supply. It's ridiculous. Anyway, you see me just applying the red line tape, and then I press in one side, and I go around and I do 3 of the sides, and then I just trim off from folding it up. It kind of overlaps past the edge of the panel, so I use my scissors to trim off the bits that are like hanging over the edge. And then I apply the red line on the 4th side, but I'm not sealing that yet because you need to be able to add your shaker bits. Which for these cards, I made my own little shaker mix by mixing 3 different sets of confetti. These are all from Trinity Stamps. I've got Ballet Slipper, Fairy Aura, and Matte Metallic Silver. And I'm just adding them to a triangle tray and kind of mixing them all up here to create my little mix. And then pro tip, make sure you're, putting the shaker mix inside the pouch, not pouring it on top. Professional tip. Thankfully, I didn't dump that entire tray. I would have been so annoyed with myself, but corralled it all back and then poured it in between the plastic and the card front, as, it's supposed to be. So I was kind of happy with how that looked. So then I made more of my little mix here to pour into the second shaker. And then I'm also going to add a bit of glitter. This is Simon's Chunky Glitter in Unicorn Confetti. Love. And that's what I use it the most for, is like shakers like this, because it's all sealed in, so it's not going anywhere. It can't seep out anywhere. Don't have to worry about making a mess. This is why I'm also just making sure, like when I fold everything over and then when I adhere these to the card fronts, I make sure everything is just sealed, so it ain't going anywhere. So I added the unicorn confetti to give it that little, unicorn confetti chunky glitter. And then I flip these over and then seal up the final side. And then same thing. The little corners, which you can't really see much on camera, but yeah, that are kind of hanging over the edge, I just trim those off with scissors. And then I've got my flat shaker panels. And the thing to always remember with flat shakers is you're not going to get as much movement as you do in a standard shaker, because, you use the foam tape, you've got that, you build up the height and there's more space for things to move and shake around. So it just kind of depends on what you're going for. The beauty of the flat shaker, and I'll show at the very end, is how thin you can keep it. So it just makes it easier to mail. It's one of the reasons why I love them so much. So my die cutting, I used the CZ Design Spooky Wafer die. This came out years ago. Still one of my faves. And for the glitter cardstock, this was the Twinkling Pink glitter cardstock from the Altenew Fairy Dust pack. Literally flipped through all my glitter cardstocks, and this was the perfect shade of pink to go with that ink that I used. And then I'd also cut a piece of Simon's, my brain stopped, cotton candy, I think. I'll have it all linked, cardstock to back that, just to, again, build a little bit of dimension. And the outline I did from gray cardstock. Adhered them all together with craft tacky glue. And then to add to the sentiment, I'm using the Witch Feet wafer die set. This was also in that same kit and is also available individually. As of doing this voiceover, I think it's out of stock right now, but they will restock it at some point. And I die cut that from the same pink and gray cardstocks. I did her shoes from that pink glitter. Love. And then the little belt buckles I die cut from just a small piece of Simon's matte silver cardstock. These ended up being like so cute. And then I was thinking, I was like, oh, this die set would be really cute if you want to do like Wicked themed type cards, you know, because like that movie's coming out soon. And I know people are like huge fans of that. And I was like, oh, this could be cute ideas. Anyway, I assembled my little pieces here, gluing on everything with craft tacky glue, getting the little glittery shoes in place, and then using my reverse tweezers to hold those tiny little buckles so that I could add the adhesive and then glue those to the little glittery shoes. So then once those are assembled, to adhere these to the front, I'm using, again, red line tape. When I'm adhering on top, anything to do with like plastic, acetate, etc., my preference is dry adhesive. So red line tape, score tape, foam adhesive, anything like that. I will avoid at all costs using any sort of liquid adhesive. Doesn't matter what brand it is, because I've tried all of them. I'll do the liquid if I have to, especially if it's a very delicate, very thin thing that it's, impossible to add a dry adhesive to. Then I'll use liquid. But no matter, it won't hold fully. But again, if it's very delicate, liquid adhesive in the end. It's just more convenient, and it does work, just not as well. This holds better. So I put red line adhesive on the back of the sentiment and then attach the legs to it, and then put the adhesive on the back of those and pop those into place. And then for the companion sentiments, I'm using the reverse Halloween sentiment strips from CZ Design, which I've used in a bajillion videos, and I'm going to have to repurchase these for next year's series as well, because I have hacked apart and used so many of them. So I had cut the sentiments I wanted, and then for the ones that are going on the front, I just took my black marker and went along the edges of all these pieces just to cover that exposed white cardstock so everything looks a little more finished. And then for the little thinner strips here, I'm using, again, red line tape. This is the 1/8 of an inch width. So it just works. Just trimmed little pieces to size, stuck them into place, and then that one individual word there, the good, I stuck thin foam squares just to give that a teensy extra bit of dimension. So then I'm going to adhere these. I just thought this one was fitting, like trick or treat, smell my feet. This is why I like making Halloween cards. You can just be silly with it. So adhered everything onto these card fronts with the red line and the thin foam squares. So we've got spooky good salutations. And then for the inside of my card, that's where I use the baddie for you sentiment. Again, rather fitting. So I'm going to adhere that into place with the craft tacky glue and then reinforce the fold on the card. And then to adhere the card front to the card base, I'm going to use the red line tape again. Like I said, I do this just to ensure that everything, nothing is going to pop off or open and pour glitter everywhere, This just ensures that everything is secure. So I stuck that on the back and then lined that up on the card front, pressed it into place, and that finished off these cards. So I've got these fun little flat shaker cards. You can see just how flat these are. Love it. Love it. And then they're shaky. Got our little shaky bits. And like I said, they're not going to shake a ton like your standard shaker, but you still get you still get a little bit of that little shaky bit stuff, which is it's just fun. So, like I mentioned in the intro, I'll have links to all the things in the description box below. And then I'll link to the playlists and video I mentioned at the very end in the end screen that you can check out if you have missed them. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton. I very much appreciate it. It just tells those robot overlords you like what you see. And I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!